The first Fairline Phantom arrived in 1974 in the shape of the Phantom 32. But the name is more synonymous with the mid-size Flybridge range designed in partnership with Bernard Olesinski, which became a market leader during the late 90s and early 2000s. In 2022, the Phantom returns. And that Phantom badge is now attached to Fairline's first ever sportsbridge boat. Now the yard has taken its time to join this particular niche, but it looks to have been well worth the wait. I mean, I know looks are subjective and all, but I think this is a fantastic looking boat. It's well proportioned, it's sleek, it has a really purposeful stance on the water, and you'd have absolutely no idea that it shared its underpinnings with the Squadron 68 flagship. This is platform sharing at its most subtle and intelligent. But what's it like to drive? Well, let's start with the engines. There are two options, both from Caterpillar, C18 1150 horsepower, or what we've got on this boat, C32 1650 horsepower V12s. It's £250,000 to upgrade between the two, and you get about 5 knots more at the top end. So you're talking, what, 50 grand a knot? It's a lot of money. But what it means is that instead of topping out at 30 knots, which the 1150 horsepower engines would, you can really comfortably cruise at 30 knots, and the engines are only at about 80% load. It feels really, really comfortable at what is quite a fast cruising speed, where you're still going to get well over 200 nautical miles. And flat out, well, 36 knots today, but we've got 5 people on board, full fuel, full water and full black water. So in normal running conditions, I think you can probably call this a 37 knot boat. Handling is absolutely lovely. The steering is very, very light. It's 10 turns lock to lock, but actually the boat reacts really nicely despite that lightness. It's agile. Certainly when you first start turning, there is a nice amount of heel. It fattens off a little bit. This is twin shaft, and you've got a seakeeper on board on this version. That's a £140,000 option. It actually reacts really nicely from the wheel, and is a great deal of fun to drive, even if it hasn't been particularly challenging conditions here in the south of France today. What about the actual driving position? Well, this boat is up against a boat that's got one of the best driving positions that I've ever been in, which is a Sunseeker 65 Sport Yacht, and it's Sky Helm. It's not quite as good as that, but it's very different. It's much more sort of inclusive. That driving position is really about the 2 people at the helm. What I like about this one is that you've got this little area next to me here where other passengers can sit and enjoy the ride. And actually it's a very comfortable position. You're nice and close to everything. I've got a huge amount of adjustment because the seat slides forward and backwards. The wheel is fully adjustable. Everything is good and close. And as well as the big MFDs right in front of me, I've got a really useful little Garmin screen down to my left-hand side where I can have chart, I can have engine data, but you can also have the Fairline management system here. So you've got overview of everything to do with the boat, all the systems from up here on the Flybridge. Some good ergonomics as well. You've got a little section down here where you've got a built-in phone charger, there's some cup holders, and just a really simple run of switches down here for lighting and to control the Bimini. It's really simply done, works really nicely. But driving from up here is only half the story on this boat, so let's see what it's like from downstairs. Now down here, you're much more aware of those monstrous engines. The fact that you've got 3,200 odd horsepower thrusting you through the water. You're a bit detached from it upstairs, but down here, when you surge the throttles forward, you hear and you feel that massive surge of torque that comes through and whips this thing up to 30 knots in what feels like the blink of an eye. It's so refined, and that's really hammered home down here. The engines aren't that far away, but even at cruising speed, you're looking at around 70 decibels. It really is very quiet even when you're up and running. And in terms of the layout down here, you've got the 3 MFDs, you've got a smaller screen a bit closer to you as well. It's all incredibly clear. It's a little bit of a stretch, but there is another panel down here so you can control the MFDs without having to actually touch them. You sit pretty much on the centre line here, and that's quite good because it's a single piece windscreen. You've got quite a thick upright here. If the steering wheel was here, that would create a pretty big blind spot. But the fact that you're in more of the middle of the boat means that that isn't too much of an issue. So that's the driving experience. Let's drop the hook and have a closer look at the decks and interior. Let's start down here at the waterline. Now, most boats of this genre have got a tender carriage. The Phantom 65 is no different, and there's room inside there for a Williams 345 sport jet. But you also have a hydraulic bathing platform that drops down into the water to give you great access to water if you're swimming. It's also a great way to recover a man overboard if, God forbid, that does happen. You also have a bench here so people can sit, look over the water. It's a nice use of space. What else do we have back here? Well, this is also where you have access to the crew cabin. It's a £16,000 option. If you don't have that, you just have some storage space. It's a pretty limited sleeping space. In fact, I don't think you're really going to want to be sleeping down there at all. However, it is quite useful to have storage and a bathroom down here, so people who have maybe got wet swimming trunks on can go in there, use the loo, and not going into the main part of the boat. Some other nice touches. This was a Fairline first, and they're still doing it. The proper overhead shower, that's a nice touch, to come out of the sea and have a proper overhead shower rather than one that you pull out on a cable. That works really nicely. This is where the Passerelle is. It's a 4.5 metre besom zone. You just pops out here. The controls for that up by the Flybridge staircase. And then under here, if you lift these cushions out, you have the must-have on boats like this these days, dedicated storage space for a Seabob. We've got fenders in it at the moment, but the Seabob will fit in there on its end. It's all drained in there as well, so it can all drain out nicely, but that's really good sort of bespoke storage. Moving into the cockpit, the sportsbridge design means you don't have a huge overhang here, but you have got a big swathe of seating. I like this area here. Nice place to tuck yourself away. It's very protected. You've got this protection here from this piece of glass, so whether the boat's stationary or moving along, that will be a nice place to sit. And there's lots of space over here to sit people down for lunch. You can put some freestanding chairs this side as well. This table is actually fixed on this boat. Going forward, this leaf will open up like this, and then you'll have a much easier passage round the table, because you can see there's a gap in the seating here, so you can easily get round onto the starboard side deck. So that will be a change going forward, but it's a nice big table. As I said, a really good place to entertain people. And yes, you've got the galley just there, but there is a fridge here as well, perfectly located drinks fridge just to serve this area. You've also got a safety locker here where you have the manual bilge pump, fuel shut-off, and then controls here, really neatly arranged, nicely labelled for lighting and the sunshade. It's all there, falls to hand really easily. Let's head forward. The side decks, they're a good width, really nice chunky guardrails. They don't come up particularly high, but then you have got this rail here that falls really easy to hand, so you can make your way forward nice and safely. You've got a nice big chunky amidships cleat here. As I said, this boat will probably be majority owner run, so you want to know that you can cruise safely, and it does feel nice and safe. And like even this styling line here, which is sort of here to smoothen the profile, is a nice place to sort of grab onto as you move forward. And you see you've got a couple of pop-up lights here as well, so you can get a bit of ambient lighting of an evening. And actually this foredeck is a really important space on the sportsbridge. Because the Flybridge is a little bit smaller than a Flybridge of this size, this becomes a really crucial living area. And I like the way that Fairline have designed it. So you've got this central walkway. It makes it very easy to move forward, get in and out of the seating, but it's set low so you can step over the cushions to get from side deck to side deck as well. It's a very nicely arranged area that supplements the living space on this main deck as well as the cockpit very well indeed. But of course we've also got a Flybridge to go and look at, so let's head up there. Now up onto the Flybridge, or the sportsbridge maybe I should say, and you know that this is going to be smaller than a Flybridge of this size, but realistically you've probably got the Flybridge of a 45, 50 footer here, and unlike something like the Sunseeker Sport Yacht 65, which feels more like just a place to drive from really with a bit of lounging space, this has got a proper dinette with an expandable table. You've got a wet bar here which has got a sink and a grill and a fridge and storage. You've got a nice U-shaped seating area here so that people can, you know, enjoy the sun on a day like this, but also they have somewhere to sit alongside the navigator and the skipper when the boat's moving along. So yes, it is a fair bit smaller than the Squadron 68 on which this boat is based, but still a very nice usable space. And you have some protection up here. You have an optional Bimini. It's £18,000. It's hydroelectric, so push of a button, up it comes, just straps down aft and forward, and then you have a nice amount of shade from the sun. Right, let's head and look at the interior. into the saloon there. Now the doors slide across in two parts to port, but then on the starboard side, there's a button here in the galley, and this whole section drops down to seat level, and that is a really nice way of combining these areas. It's really nice lines of communication between the internal seating area, the seating in the cockpit, and of course the galley. There's not much of a threshold at foot level, so it's very easy to move in and out, serve guests, etc. The galley is up here on the main deck, so the person in the galley gets to enjoy the views out of these enormous windows that we have on both sides. And you begin to pick up the Fairline attention to detail, like this fluting here in the cabinetry. You know, you could just leave that as a flat panel, but they've gone to the lengths of making it a bit more interesting. Got it down here in the satin walnut, that's an option at £18,000. You can have gloss walnut, and there's satin and gloss oak as well. But this is a really nice combination, especially with the sort of marble effect countertop. Looks really good. You've got induction cooking over here, and lots of storage all over the place. Like even back here, they've got these really deep lockers. They go a long way down. Really useful storage space. You've got eye-level lockers up here, you know, proper storage for cutlery here, and this boat's actually got a little dishwasher down here as well. Big sink. Is there a chopping board? Yes, there is. That's a good use of space. That's very heavy, but at least it's doubling up and actually quite useful. Again, over on the table, the detailing. You've got these little rubber lifted areas here so that there's damage done when it's folded up, and they've inset this maple beautifully, and that's a theme that runs throughout the boat. It looks really, really smart. Again, they just go to extra lengths to make everything feel that bit more classy. Down here, more storage, nice backlit glasses storage where everything can be kept really neatly. You know, everything's got dedicated space. Even down here, underneath the sofa, is where you have fiddles for the crockery. Really nicely done. And as we move forward, there's a little step up amidships, and with this optional low slung coffee table, this feels really spacious. You can have a table more like this one here, which can go up and down, but this, as you can see, is a sort of real lounging area. You've got the television over here. If you sit down here, you're down, sort of the window line drops down, so you've got great views out even when you're sitting down, and you can get the TV going up and watch a film here. And I like the fact that the air conditioning vents have got nice wooden tops on them, so you can change the angle of the flow. Also, they blend in really nicely. And then we get to a really key feature of the Sportsbridge design. One of the major benefits is that because the Flybridge doesn't come as far forward, there is space for a big sunroof. And even when this is closed, because it's got glass in it, you get the benefit of the natural light coming down, but then you can open this up and you get the breeze in here. It works really, really nicely. It is sort of a best of both worlds effect. Now, before we go downstairs, let's have a closer look at the electronics. Now, as standard, you get a single MFD up here and a smaller Garmin screen down here that's principally for the boat management system. It's all Fairline skinned, it looks really slick, and that's where you have oversight of tanks, pumps, lighting, all of that can be controlled from here. Now, for £8,000, you get these two more MFDs, and I think that's well worth doing, because then you can be very flexible with what you have in front of you. You know, we've got the overhead chart here, 3D chart here, you've got all the numbers from the engine room down here, but you could equally have a camera up here or the radar. Just makes it very, very flexible. They are a little bit of a stretch from the helm seat, but you have got a separate control panel down here next to the steering wheel, so you don't have to stretch quite so far out of your seat to use them. Now let's go and have a look at the cabins. Now, as standard, it's a 3-cabin, 4-bathroom layout, which means that every cabin has an ensuite, plus there's a day heads down here. But there are a few different options down here that are actually in line with the Squadron 68 flagship. It uses exactly the same format. So you can have 4 cabins, you can have a bunk bed cabin over here, or you can have this as a utility space with more storage, an ironing board, things like that. And then you can have this layout, which is the extended VIP cabin. And the best way to show you how that works out is by going inside and having a look. Because what you get when you go for the extended VIP is a VIP cabin that feels almost as luxurious as the full beam master cabin. You get this lovely entrance where you get all this extra storage. It just feels a bit more grand than the standard cabin. You have this bureau here as well, which is really nicely placed. Lots and lots of storage, not just what I've mentioned down here, but also hanging lockers either side. One compromise potentially is that this bathroom is no longer private because it's also the day head, so other guests will have access to that in the day, but then they also have their own bathroom, so a lot of them will probably just go in there and use the bathroom of the cabin they're staying in. And for me, for the space it gives you, this is probably the layout to have unless you really need the sleeping space of the extra bunk cabin. Let's go and check out the other two. So we'll move down to the master in a second. Whatever layout you have the twin cabin here. So you've got side-by-side beds in there, they've got their own bathroom, and it's got a clever mechanism in there as well, where at the push of a button, the beds either slide apart or slide together, so you can make them into a double or two singles in a matter of seconds. Onto the master. Now down here, you have the manual switchboard. So I mentioned about having access to all the functions through the screen, but if there's any ever failure there, you have a nice, really well labeled switchboard down here, so you can quickly nip down here and turn things on and off very easily. Heading through, down on this side you have washer dryer. That's quite sensibly placed between all three cabins, so everybody has access to it. It's not tucked away down in the crew space. And then we're down into the master cabin proper. And this is an absolutely lovely cabin. It really is. Again, you get all of those same quality touch points that you get throughout the rest of the boat. So you see the way the grain matches on the wood. You have the fluting on this bulkhead here. The television is actually set into that bulkhead. Again, headroom, absolutely superb. Massive hull windows on both sides. So, we're in Anchorage here, just off Cannes, and you can really see how if you're to wake up here in the morning, you're out of bed, look at that vista. Absolutely spectacular. This is where you see the benefit of the hull windows. We talk about them in every review, but in this sort of environment, you can see why they're such a big part of boat design. Again, lovely detailing. I love the lamps. I love that you've got the bendy reading lights here, lots of storage along here, drawer storage here, and then almost a walk-in wardrobe on this side. Full height hanging locker. That's a really good storage space. And if I close this door, you've got, again, the maple that you see in the table upstairs. That's in all of these doors as well. That's a really nice theme that runs throughout the boat. But if you come this way, we can have a look at what is a really nicely finished ensuite bathroom. Loads of space in here. It's almost the full beam of the cabin. Great big shower cubicle. And they've got a big rain shower head and one on a wand as well. Again, look at the view for your shower. Absolutely glorious. And all of this feels really nice as well. Again, it's really, really high quality. And because this bathroom is here, it's another layer of insulation between the bed and the machinery, which is all through there. Generator, engines, it's all through that bulkhead. And it just gives another layer of insulation. Right, talking of the engines, let's go and have a look at them. Now, as I mentioned, the base engines are the 18.1 litre inline sixes with 1,150 horsepower. These are 32.1 litre V12s. They are big old engines, so they take up quite a lot of space in this engine room. And because you've got the tender garage, there is a little bit of an obstruction in here. So for a boat of this size, it is a little bit compromised in terms of access, but actually access to the engines themselves is okay. And because it's got the fuel filters mounted nice and high and with clear bowls, you can visually inspect the fuel really easily. You will be clambering around a bit to get to the ancillaries, but everything is neatly laid out, neatly labeled. It's just a little bit tight when you first drop down here. The base price for the Phantom 65 with the smaller motors is £2.15 million excluding VAT, but our test boat came in at £2.94 million excluding VAT. It has some hefty options, however, including, amongst other things, the larger engines, a 250 grand upgrade, the Passerelle, a £140,000 Seakeeper 18 gyro, 27 grand's worth of Sonos audio kit, bow and stern thrusters, the crew cabin fit out, and a £30,000 Williams 345 sport jet. As I said at the beginning of this review, it has taken Fairline quite a while to adopt this sportsbridge genre, but what that has allowed them to do is test the bed that this is built on. Between the Squadron 68 and the Targa 65, they've built a lot of boats with this hull, engine options, so dynamically it feels absolutely spot on. This is hull number one, the first one they've produced, and it feels really, really good. It's always a good sign when the first boat off the line performs as well as this one does. So as I said, it's a twin shaft drive boat, no joystick, so you just have the throttles, but actually there's so much bite and powerful input from these props when you knock it in and out of gear. You have excellent amounts of fine control, and because it hasn't got that big Flybridge, you've got a bit less windage, so it behaves really nicely in the marina. In fact, just in one engine, you can get up to over 6 knots, so you have to be quite careful. Just shows you how powerful these engines are, even at slow speed. But what that means is you can really easily manipulate the boat, and it does make these maneuvers relatively easy, as do the stern thrusters. A bow thruster is standard, stern thruster is an option. I would imagine most people will probably go for it, especially in the Med. It just gives you a bit more fine control when you're mooring stern to, but generally for a big boat, it feels very manageable in and around the marina. And of course it has the sports bridge compromises. The Flybridge is not as big as a traditional Flybridge boat, but the benefit of that is you get that sunroof. And you talk about having best of both worlds, well, this does tread that line really, really nicely. And of course, if you want a bigger Flybridge, you can always pick a Squadron. Thanks very much for watching my review of the Fairline Phantom 65. I hope you enjoyed it. Get it in the comments and let me know whether you'd pick this or the Squadron 68. I'll be interested to know which one you prefer. Please remember to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you're notified every time we upload a new video. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you on the next one.